looking for here? What changes do you see? What changes do you see? Do you see any changes?
Let me ask you a question. How did you determine where to tie these strings? Was it important where they were tied?
Yeah.
Okay, why? Tell me why. Somebody tell me why.
What's the first thing that we know about the wind here?
It's not blowing.
Not blowing. Was that the same thing that happened last week?
With the expanded learning time in science, we can do extension activities that we couldn't do before, and more hands-on projects. We can actually extend the lesson, have children think deeper about what they're learning because we have that extra amount of time.
Sometimes in the past I would have to compromise and go by units. So every 2 weeks do social studies for 2 weeks, then do science for 2 weeks, and really make a lot of sacrifices because there wasn't enough time in the day.
STEP stands for Science Through Experiments program. We began it as a way to teach science content to students by having them work the way scientists would work in real-life environment. Just as you wouldn't learn how to play basketball by reading about it in a book, you shouldn't really be learning science that way.
A plastic glass and a thermos. You may have time to try one more. All right, is there something else you're interested in?
If they were reading about it, answering questions, and just taking a test, the student who needs a more concrete understanding may not be able to be as successful. But doing it in a project setting, every student can succeed, each to his or her own level.
Today's lesson was rate of cooling. So the real life connection to that would be, in what material does your hot water cool the slowest? So it's that whole idea of real life applications.
When there's two walls, in between this, there's probably just a small amount of air.
Because it makes it go around and it has the same thing inside of it, the same cold, hot air.
Yeah.
You're putting the students in the role as real scientists. We're not just reading from a textbook, we're actually doing the experiments, using the language, writing up lab reports, data sheets, conclusions.
When we're working with the students, we need at least a 90-minute block of time in order to be able to accomplish something of substance by the time we get the students into the lab, refresh our memories about what we're doing, or introduce some discussion. We want to have time for them to get going, and they just get involved in doing the data. In a shorter time period, they would have to be picking up. So by having the longer block of time, they become more invested and they can accomplish a lot more.
What was Mark's problem? Hunter.
He wanted to build a scale, but he didn't have a scale, and he wanted to see how much rocks weigh.
Okay, good. The science lesson I taught this afternoon was an extension of the engineering design process. They were presented with a problem where there was a child who had 3 rocks and he wanted to weigh them. They had to kind of imagine and come up with a plan on how they were going to weigh these rocks.
Say this one was tied all the way down here and this one was all the way right here. It'd be different because this one would start to go down a little bit because it's on the end.
Kind of like a lever where the fulcrum is. Obviously your experiment works, it seems successful. If you can improve anything, what would it be?
I think doing this type of science work definitely gives students a greater opportunity to practice the skills they'll need for the 21st century. What we hope we're teaching them, even more than the content is along the way, is that they're learning how to solve a problem, how to approach an issue, how to separate into manageable areas of study, and then really how to dig in and investigate a particular question. So those are all important skills for the future.